This week on the witness stand, we have Shannon Griffiths, who has been to London this week. Would you like to tell us a bit about that, Shannon?
Yeah, I took a trip to London this week and went to the Bar Council Pupillage Fair 2023. I travelled to London via the train, got up very early, got the train at 6 a.m. to get there in time. The event was basically a networking event to meet prospective chambers. There was other organisations there, such as pro bono organisations. The Inns of Court had representatives there, and stuff like that. There were seminars that you could go into to learn about various different topics that I'll discuss later on. But yeah, I travelled there. It was a free event held in London, and it was really interesting and a really good experience to go and meet people that were in the profession already and who are looking for prospective pupillages.
So what's that like when you walk into this room and there's so many professionals there that you presumably want to speak to? You don't know where to start. What's that like walking into that room?
It was really good experience actually. Obviously you're going to an event where you're going to meet potential employers, so everyone was dressed appropriately. I was dressed appropriately. I wore a suit because you should dress for the job that you want. And I think it was really important to remain professional throughout when you were having conversations. I think one of the things that we're always told throughout being at school to now is to make sure that you conduct yourself professionally at all times. So it was just remembering that and remembering to engage in conversations. But yeah, going in, it was good. There was obviously many law students there. There was a lot of people there. I was quite surprised at the amount of people that were there. So it was a little bit nerve-wracking, but just obviously remembered that why I was there and just tried to sort of mingle with people from other universities as best that I could.
You say about the sort of range of people who were there and where they're from and everything. What's it sort of like? Because when we do the mixes at the uni, it's a lot of like local firms, they're not national sort of level firms. What's it like going somewhere where it's firms where, well, not firms, but chambers which you've heard about, more of a national level sort of thing? What's the difference between that?
I think the noticeable difference is, of course, the sort of lack of representation that is from the North East. There wasn't any firms that were from Newcastle or Sunderland. Obviously, Sunderland's quite a small place, but from Newcastle especially, I was quite surprised. The closest we had was a firm, Chambers in Leeds, did work in Newcastle occasionally, but Leeds and Manchester were sort of the closest chambers to us, which is always a little bit disappointing because we obviously we have a really strong northern set of chambers, so it would have been nice to sort of see them there, get to speak to them, get to network with them, because there's not that many events where that happens. There's quite a lot of events put on by the university, like you said, Matthew, but it's primarily solicitors that attend those events and not barristers. So the engagement for barristers in the North East is quite low across the board. There's not many opportunities to do that.
How did you find that people reacted to you being from the North East when there is that sort of lack of representation?
I think people were really surprised. Obviously, they heard my accent, knew that I'd, at one point travelled quite far, and they asked me sort of when I travelled to London, how early did I get the train, and they did comment quite a lot on the commitment to going to the event, the commitment to the career, which is a really big part of the application process, is showing your willingness and commitment to the profession. So I think they all reacted pretty well. Obviously, some of them had chambers across the country, so some of them were in Leeds. So it was sort of a talking point for that. So I think they reacted positively, and it was nice to sort of get the recognition to sort of say, oh, well, you've travelled this far to come and speak with us today, and then that was nice.
Do you think you've learned anything from talking with these sort of professionals that you didn't already know?
Yeah, I think there's obviously so many chambers around the country. Getting the chance to meet with them face to face, it's not only a chance for them to meet me and get to know me and sort of, maybe in the future remember my name and remember maybe that they want to interview me, but it's also a chance for me to see what they're like as a chamber as well, and sort of understand or evaluate whether I'd fit into their culture as well, because it is a two-way street, because if I'm giving up my that it's my career to work for their chambers, I'd want to make sure that it's the kind of environment that I want to be in, as well as their environment that they want me to be in.
How do you find that the sort of perception around the law is when you go into more events with a lot more southern people? Because in the northeast, there's a sort of feeling of like it's a bit of a community sort of aspect to the law, I think. But how does it feel down south?
Yeah, I was actually quite surprised at the positive comments that most chambers made about other chambers. For instance, there was quite a lot of firms that only did one area of law, so they would only do family or they'd only do crime. And I was quite surprised that the positivity around the place for each chamber. It didn't really feel like they were in competition with each other. Obviously, a lot of them are based elsewhere, but the ones that were based in London, who potentially could have the same clients, didn't seem, sort of in competition or in any way trying to sort of make your mind up about other chambers, which I thought was nice, because I think as well it's such a competitive profession that I think you could easily fall into that trap of trying to sell your chamber and explain why it's the best and stuff like that. But I think I didn't get that sort of vibe from the event.
Is there anything that you sort of wish you'd asked someone, or that you'd do next time that you didn't do this time? Yeah,
I think I would definitely recommend the event to anyone who's thinking of doing the bar or going down the route of becoming a barrister. I think if I was to go again, I think I would think about in more depth what questions I was going to ask the people who were there. I think one of the things that I wish I'd done a little bit more was sort of talk about what work they were actually individually working on. I think that would have been a really interesting conversation. You sort of fall into the trap of asking about the chambers and sort of what they specialise in, and obviously going there alone, had to start the conversation myself and engage in that conversation by myself every single time, which was quite difficult at times. But yeah, I think just if you're going to an event like that, make sure you plan some questions. I had some pre-planned questions in my head, and I wish I'd sort of maybe thought about it a bit more to sort of really engage with the person on like more like personal level, rather than just sort of your bog standard questions. I think that's how you stand out in them situations.
So where did you hear about this opportunity, and where can people look if they're interested in going to one of these events?
I heard about the opportunity on the Bar Council website, which is something that somebody should visit if you want to be a barrister. There's a lot of opportunities, a lot of networking events on there. It is very well advertised. I did hope to go last year, and I didn't have the opportunity because of timing and travel. So this year I was determined to get there, and I'm glad that it was very worth my time. But yeah, it's spread across the bar social medias and stuff like that. You sign up via a link on their website. The event itself was well documented. It gave you a rundown of what was happening when, what chambers were going to be there, so you had the opportunity to research the chambers, to find out what they did, to find out who you want to speak to, because there was a lot and you couldn't possibly speak to everyone while you were there. So it was good to have that knowledge in the back of your mind of who you want to speak to make sure that you really had the time to get to their chambers, and then you sort of decided from there who else you wanted to speak to.
Well, that's all the questions we've got for you, Shannon. Thank you very much for talking with us.